Hi, I'm Nancy Shanto, and I'm here to talk with you about an upcoming class, Crossing the Threshold. I created this class because on many occasions I've heard people talking about their own process of spiritual development, process of coming to terms with their own values about life and their experience on the planet as human beings, their way of knowing. And a through line for me in all of the listening that I've done on this topic is that I often hear people talking about their experience as if they are trapped, as if they're in some way uh, imprisoned here on the planet in their body, in their experience. And that there's this sense that they have to earn their place or earn their way into belonging, into feeling okay, into feeling peaceful, and that it's an unattainable external state that they need to do something in order to achieve a good result, and then they'll feel okay, then they'll be good, then they'll be um, loved, connected, they'll belong to the world. And when I hear that, I think that it is a product of the way in which we have been disconnected from belonging, the way that we have been disconnected from our intrinsic humanity, our intrinsic sense of being a part of the natural world. And it's relatively easy to get to that. We are not being raised in the natural world. We're being raised inside of buildings, in cars. We don't tend to spend very much time outside unless we have created a different kind of life for ourselves. And as a result of that, our palpable sense of disconnection from the world the natural order that we are born into, that sense of disconnection is reinforced by the social structures and the ways that we live in our modern existence. And so we end up feeling bad, and we're trying to do something about that. And trying to do something about that puts the destination outside of us. I'm going to achieve something or succeed in some way or arrive somewhere, and then I'll feel good. Instead of being something about a repair that needs to happen internally. The repair isn't because we start out broken. It's because the way that we get raised in our culture, in our social structures, based on capitalism, based on this idea that we can own property, we can own objects and animals, and that ownership then makes us feel like property in some way. It disconnects us, and we lose a sense of our subjectivity, and we become objects that can be also good objects or bad objects, that we can do what we're supposed to do our job, or fail at our job. And this disconnection that we've monetized, we have objectified, we've disconnected from the natural world and from our intrinsic sense of belonging, that rupture needs to be repaired. And that repair process isn't something that we go outside of ourselves to solve. It's something that we actually solve internally. In order to do that, we actually have to think it's possible. So we need a belief structure that lets us do things that are going to allow us to come into this feeling of belonging. And it's not just a story. We can tell ourselves the story that we belong. If we don't believe it and feel it, it's going to be harder to live from there. So what's possible if we change this? We're able to experience our lives as something that we are not having to earn anything in order to belong. We're not having to earn love. We're not having to earn goodness or a place in our existence. And as a result of that, if we have an intrinsic belonging, if we are able to restore that intrinsic sense of belonging, then what we're able to do is accept the unacceptable. Accepting the unacceptable, this is what is, what's actually happening is what is. And then we can start to do what we can about it. instead of trying to fix it by fixing ourselves, fix our powerlessness, our feeling of disconnection by fixing ourselves. Instead, we can accept our experience and then from there choose how we would like to relate. How do I want to relate with other people? How do I want to relate with my work? How do I want to relate with my home, my belongings, my sense of self? So from all of those relationships, we can, if we change how we orient ourselves, if we accept our belonging as inherent and intrinsic, if we then accept that we have this rupture that we need to heal inside of ourselves, then there's some tasks that will help us come into the feeling of belonging, not just the idea of belonging. And that feeling of belonging, one of the big things that's in the way is anything historically that we've experienced that was too much for us. What we do with those experiences, often it's grief, exhaustion, rage, pain. We'll store them in our bodies. And so we end up with this storehouse of experiences that don't increase the tension in our body, they increase the stress in our body, and they reduce the amount of space that we have available to us. So we need to let go of our grief and our rage, our exhaustion and our pain, anything historically that was greater than we could handle in the moment, that's stored in our muscles and our tissues. We need to grieve that out. We also need to figure out how to locate ourselves in our observing wise adult consciousness. This is something that allows us to, rather than making decisions from the momentary wants and needs of our body or our younger consciousness, our child consciousness, we're able to locate ourselves in our wise adult and from there take into account past self, current self, future self, and make decisions for ourselves that take all of the parts of ourselves into account. Also taking into account our values, what we care about, what we think is important in our lives, what we've already committed to, the relationships that we care about, the way that we relate with the natural world. All of these things, we're able to make different decisions about what it is. Here's what is. Here's the accepting the unacceptable that we need to do. Now we can start to locate ourselves in our choice and do what we can. This class is designed not to prescribe, not to tell you what to do in order to figure out how to belong on the planet. It instead poses this question: are you trying to earn your place? Are you feeling loved? Are you allowing all the love that's coming towards you in? And if not, what do you need to do in order to change that? What are the things that are in your way? What are the obstacles in your path? What are the skills you need to develop? And then to start working the plan. These are the things that I needed to do in order to get to this place where I could feel like I belong on the planet, and that belonging then allows me to do things much more powerfully and much less stressfully. So I'm not trying to please other people or earn other people's respect or love from them. I'm acknowledging what is and then doing what I can from there. The path I followed in order to get to this point, I call crossing the threshold. That there's this threshold that we all approach in our lives that some of us find easy to cross and some of us find very ineffable and difficult to cross. And we're going to, in this class, identify what are the elements of crossing the threshold. What are the ways in which we need to take care of ourselves in order to move differently so that we can start from belonging and then choose how we want to respond to our experience. Every one of us has both our external experiences that are based on the collective and our internal experiences that are based on ourselves. And I talk about anything that drains us being our human homework. We have to do our human homework before we can design our lives. And the amount of power and privilege that we were born into is going to affect the human homework that we have to do and also what we are capable of doing. And many people who have immense power and immense privilege are still trying to earn their place instead of beginning from belonging, even though it seems like they have all of this power and all of this privilege. Instead of beginning from the belonging, they begin from being trapped, and they're trying to escape. They're trying to somehow figure out how to fix things so that they can have earned their place and then feel good, feel peaceful, feel loved. And that is an immense amount of energy to put towards something that is unnecessary, that already exists, we already have. And so what is in the way? What are the things that each of us need to do? This class is going to help us create and identify steps that we need to do and make a plan for how to do them, figure out what kind of support we need in order to do them, and actually get started. I've set this up to be a year-long program. I feel like the idea of it being a year-long program isn't that the steps are complicated or hard to figure out. It's that implementing them takes time. When I was doing a lot of the releasing of historic grief and rage from my body, exhaustion and pain, the process took me, I had started doing body work probably, mid-year the year before, and then my grandfather died, and there was about a 9-month process where I was doing a lot of crying in the bodywork sessions I was receiving. And one day I went from crying and wailing and feeling like that grief was a bottomless black hole of grief and rage. One day it just stopped in the middle of a feeling of immense grief and loss. I just stopped feeling that feeling. I had emptied out the well. I had released the pain and grief in my body, and it wasn't there anymore. So I hope that this class helps you, if not by participating, envision your own belonging and make a list of the things that you think you need to do in order to belong, in order to embody belonging, in order to act from there, in order to feel it. Because when we don't feel like we belong, we fight for something that already we have. And that is a great tragedy. I hope this is informative and helpful to you. I hope you join us. We're going to start on March 27th. And if you have any questions, please feel free to read more about the class, reach out and ask me questions. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. This is what I do. I love to help people make their lives better through both the practice and understanding, through the intellectual understanding of what's going on, the practice of what we need to do to change, and the embodiment of that combination, letting us change who we are, how we are, and what we're capable of in the world. Thank you.